Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the very first installment of the new podcast series, which is Coffee and Kernels. This episode is going to be all about Zack Snyder's Justice League, which just released out on HBO Max a couple weeks ago. I'm Bryce, and welcome to this YouTube channel. Now, this is a newer podcast. I also do another one about women's soccer, but I had my inspiration for this because I absolutely love movies, video games, technology, etc., and I wanted to make a podcasting slash YouTube channel or series based on that, so that's why we're here. It's called Coffee and Kernels because while I indulge in all those activities, I always have two things. I always have a cup of coffee with me and a bowl of popcorn, and when you combine the two, it's an absolute masterpiece, especially when you combine hot cocoa powder and a cup of coffee. Please, if you're at home, try it right now. Pause the video, go try it, and let me know what you think. I'm sorry if you don't like it, but I'm telling you, you will absolutely love it. So, like I said earlier, I had the pleasure of watching Zack Snyder's Justice League cut this past weekend, and this is how I feel about the entire movie. So I had the pleasure of watching Zack Snyder's Justice League this past weekend, and I know it's been out for about a week or so at the time of this recording, which I'm a little late to the game, but nevertheless, here we are. Um, Basically, for those of you who don't know what Zack Snyder's The Justice League is, a few years ago when The Justice League originally came out, Zack Snyder actually filmed almost all the film. They were in post-production, but then his family endured a tragedy. His daughter passed away, and he had to step away from the project. So what Warner Brothers did was they hired Joss Whedon to step in and finish the movie, and in doing so, he made a lot of changes. He had to cut down the movie from 4 hours or more all the way down to 2.5, 2 hour story. And by and large, from what I've been seeing, it wasn't well received. I mean, I think the Rotten Tomatoes score is like 56% or something really, really low like that. So it got fans pretty much rallied. They all rallied together and they cried out, release the Snyder Cut, which is Zack Snyder's original vision for the Justice League. And Warner Media saw this and they made it happen. So here we are. Now we get Zack Snyder's Justice League, which is a 4 hour, what I like to call epic movie that is currently on HBO Max. So if you have an HBO Max subscription, you can go ahead and watch it. I had to sign up myself to watch it in this case. And let me just say, it was totally worth it. So for those of you who are on the fence, I highly recommend seeing this movie. For me, you could just tell that it was handled with a lot more tender loving care in this 4 hour format than it was in the 2.5 hour, which makes a ton of sense, right? Because the original director of any project, really, that it's their baby. They take it on, they nurture it from basically inception all the way to when we all get to see it as fans. So I'm not surprised that it seemed to have a lot more attention to detail, a lot more care in telling the background of some of the characters' stories and whatnot. It just all adds up and makes a ton of sense, and something I really appreciated. What really made the movie special for me was a lot of different things. There's a lot of things I really liked about this movie. Mainly, what we got in this movie that we did not get in uh, Joss Whedon's final edited version of the movie was a little bit more background into Cyborg's character and also the Flash's character. And I would say maybe even a little bit more into Aquaman's. Just for a little bit of context, this is actually the first DC Universe movie I have ever seen. I saw the original Justice League not too long ago, and then the Snyder Cut came out, so I went ahead and started watching it. But just for a little bit of frame of reference, I have never seen any other DC movie, so take that thought with a grain of salt. But as far as I know, the only other DC movie that would remotely talk about any of these characters' backgrounds that I just mentioned, including Cyborg, Flash, and Aquaman, is Aquaman. Aquaman's got his current standalone movie right now starring Jason Momoa and Amber Heard, which I haven't seen yet. So for me, this movie shed a lot more light into those three characters that I didn't see previously, and for me, I appreciated it a lot more, and I also enjoyed it. It got me a lot more invested into these characters. For example, Cyborg's story about how he was a high school football star, captain of the football team, really successful student, had a good heart, who tragically just is dealing with the life that he's been dealt with. I don't want to give away spoilers in this movie for those of you who haven't seen it, but it adds a lot more context into his character, and it makes you appreciate him a lot more and his future endeavors and how he copes with loss, how he grieves, how he moves forward in life and just kind of rolls with the punches and makes the best of it. And they even go in a little bit more into Barry Allen's character. For those of you who don't know, Barry Allen is played by Ezra Miller in this movie. There was a particular scene where they do go a little bit more into his backstory. There's actually a few of them. Not all of them really land in here for me, which is totally okay as long as it provides a little bit more information on the character that we didn't get previously. I'm totally fine with that personally, and all the scenes that were added in with Barry Allen definitely succeed in that. And what was really cool about this movie is I think you got to see more of Ezra Miller's acting style in this movie. Ezra Miller, for those of you who haven't seen Perks of Being a Wallflower, he's more of a whimsical kind of actor, a little bit more, I guess for lack of a better term, out there. And you really get to see that shine and do what he does best in this movie. And that's another thing I think that added strength to it. It made his performance feel even more authentic than I thought it did before. Because I thought in Joss Whedon's version, I thought Ezra Miller still gave a great performance in that aspect as well. And then in terms of Aquaman, even with the adage in this movie, like I said, I know nothing about Aquaman up until seeing the original Justice League movie, but even with the added scenes of Aquaman in this movie, I couldn't get quite vested into buying into his character and really having a deep love and appreciation for him. Having said that, I did gain some semblance of appreciation for him because he had such a very, to me, excuse me, a much more laid back personality in terms of not taking everything super, super seriously, or when he has this sense of camaraderie with Cyborg, with Diana Prince, Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman. He brings that sense of camaraderie to the team, and it was really, really great. However, nothing in his backstory really clenched to me right here. There's exception to that though. The only exception to that was the fact that he claims that his mother left him in a circumstance which he had to face adversity in life. And like I said earlier, I'm sure if I watched Aquaman, I probably would love his character a lot more in the movie. But for me, without that context, I wasn't able to fully grasp it. And I'll even go as far as to say the same goes for Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. However, I will say I've seen enough in Zack Snyder and Joss Whedon's versions of the Justice League to where I had never, like I said, I've never seen Batman versus Superman, and I know nothing about Batman's backstory in this universe. And this movie didn't really give me a whole ton of that, but it didn't really detract my thoughts on Ben Affleck being a great Batman. And they had enough in the movie to suffice for me to have enough information about Superman for me to form an opinion about him. So that I thought was a very positive thing too, not having seen Batman versus Superman. They give you enough in Zack Snyder's version to really put the pieces together and gain an appreciation for Batman and Superman. And even they even do the same in terms of Diana Prince, Wonder Woman. They don't really do so in Josh Whedon's version of Justice League, but in Zack Snyder's version, like I said, you get that much more complete look into Diana Prince as well, and you can form more of an appreciation for her too, which for me, I really enjoyed. She's a role model, she kicks a lot of ass, and it's just a ton of fun to see. And I guess to sum all of that up into one big point, what I'm trying to say is in Zack Snyder's version, it's a much more complete story and it gives a lot more information into each of these characters' backgrounds. When you get people like me who have never seen any of the DC Cinematic Universe movies, it helps a lot and it makes me enjoy the movie a lot more. So for those of you who are going into the Justice League or even the DC Universe completely cold, I would say Zack Snyder's version is perfect for you. What are some other things I really appreciate about the movie? They actually go deeper into the kind of keeping on the same point. They go deeper into the villain's backstory, which is Steppenwolf, what his motivations are, what the greater grand scheme of things is, what he has at stake, why he's doing what he's doing. And it makes for a really fascinating intrigue, and it really paves it in such a way where you can tell with Zack Snyder they're trying to almost form a larger Justice League and maybe a Justice League cinematic universe in general, or should I say DC cinematic universe too. You can tell they're setting and paving the way for more that we just didn't get to see in Josh Whedon's version. So, and it sounds like Zack Snyder is stepping away from the DC universe in general now, so we'll never see that into fruition. But it's always kind of fascinating to have this little larger story that was a preview into what the movies could have been or someday could be. Who knows? They could pick up the project yet again someday and make some additional movies. So you could really tell with this movie, they're really setting up for something more. And with Joss Whedon's version, they cut a lot of that out and we didn't get a lot of it, which probably is one of the big reasons why the movie got cut down as much as it did. But then again, like I said, having a 4 hour epic like this go to theaters isn't exactly, it's not exactly a recipe for success. Sitting 4 hours in one theater might be a little bit long for some people. And I don't know if it would have resonated much better or worse in that aspect. So that's just some food for thought as to why they maybe had to cut it down to 2.5 hours. But at the end of the day, I think Zack Snyder's version is far and away much, much better and much more entertaining. And there's a lot more to appreciate it too. I think that the action in this movie also is quite excellent as well. They keep giving you a healthy dose of backstory and action, and they do so in such a way where they kind of weave it together to the point where you don't really know what's coming. For example, we could be exploring Barry Allen's backstory, but while we're exploring Barry Allen's backstory, they interweave some moments of action in there to keep the pacing nice and healthy. Like the movie didn't feel like it dragged on at all. I never once thought in the 4 hours that I was watching this movie where I'm like, oh my God, I'm so bored. I watched, full disclosure, I watched the movie in two doses. I watched the first dose in about an hour. I watched the first hour, and then the next day I watched the next 3 hours. And in either sense, I was not bored at all in the movie. I thought it was paced really, really appropriately, and I didn't feel like it slogged on at all. And everything just, it made sense, it melded together, and it made for a really entertaining experience overall. So what else in this movie really, really stood out to me? I really like Alfred. I really, really enjoyed this iteration of Alfred. I can't remember what the actor's name is off the top of my head who played Alfred in this case, but he's obviously a lot different than in Christopher Nolan's Batman with Michael Caine. Michael Caine's Alfred to me was just absolutely stellar. He's probably my favorite Alfred of all time. But the one that was used in this particular version also boded really well, and I think it clicked with Ben Affleck's portrayal of Batman, which I didn't think I would really like Ben Affleck's portrayal of Batman, having never seen it before. But I honestly have to say I liked it quite a bit. You could tell he's fighting for the greater good. He is, I don't want to say a role model because the way Ben Affleck portrays Batman, it's not like he's trying to be a role model. He's just trying to bring together a extraordinary group of people to fight oppressive forces, which in this case is Steppenwolf and his army of demons. So I thought Ben Affleck's portrayal was sound. I thought it was solid. It took a Batman that I haven't seen before and put it onto the screen and put him in such a light that I didn't know that I wanted. It was very, and he also did so in such a way where it was a little bit more rustic. The shapes, even in the costume for Ben Affleck, are a little bit more rounded. So, for example, you can tell that in the shoulders it's a little bit more rounded. Even in the armor plating itself, it's a little bit more rounded. And if you look at the bat logo too, instead of having it be very sharp points, very precise, it's a little bit more of a bulky symbol. Like for example, if you look at this part of the original Batman symbol, it's a little bit more curved, when in this case, it's just a straight line. And to me, it added to that rustic, rugged look of the Batman that I don't think we have seen before ever. So I thought it was a really, really cool, unique perspective on Batman. And honestly, after seeing this movie, it makes me really look forward to all that I have to see in the rest of the DC universe, including Batman versus Superman Dawn of Justice. I'll be watching the Ultimate Edition, which has the extra a half hour attached to it because now that I'm an HBO Max subscriber, I can go ahead and watch that as well. Plus, I have to watch the original Wonder Woman because I haven't seen that either. And I have to say, I did lie to you guys a little bit at the beginning of this video. I said I have never seen another DC cinematic movie before this. However, I did go and see Wonder Woman 84 in theaters. That was like my first look into the DC universe. And full disclosure, I liked Wonder Woman 84. I know it's not a very popular opinion, but I liked it myself. But like I said, this movie, it's almost like it's going backwards. It's telling you the big overarching picture of all of this league of extraordinary people. And then they have then they go to their standalone movies where you get piece by piece by piece and see where they come from, what their story is, what their styles are like, and etc. and so forth. Um, Let me dive into performances a little bit for this movie. So we'll start off with Henry Cavill as Superman. I've never seen a Superman movie in my entire life, so this is like my first introduction to Superman. And Henry Cavill is exactly what I would picture when it comes to Superman. This ginormous, brooding, charismatic, yet gentle, caring alien, I guess you could say, that is just super strong and is there at the end of the day to lead and do the right thing and just basically to help. And he also is portrayed in such a way, he portrays it in such a way where he is still human. He can still love. He has Lois Lane played by Amy Adams that he clings very close to. You can tell he's very gentle with his mother. There are many things that I really appreciate about his performance that I thought were stellar. And even there's one point in this movie where I'm trying to think of a good way to put this without spoilers. He inevitably at one point is shell shocked by something that happens, and Henry Cavill does that portrayal of Superman being shell shocked so well, where I'm like, ooh, is this Superman going to be something a little bit different than in the original version of the Justice League? And he did the full range. I thought it was pretty great. Moving next into Ben Affleck as Batman. I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier already, but I thought Ben Affleck, his performance was shown a lot more, I think, appropriately and strikingly in Zack Snyder's version than it was in Josh Whedon's version. There are a few lines in Josh Whedon's version where it seemed like, and obviously we're all human, we all can't have energy all the time, but it seemed like Ben Affleck was like at low energy when delivering the lines, or if I don't know if he was just not interested, if he was just tired that day or something. But in Josh Whedon's version, there were some lines in the way that in which they were displayed where I'm like, Ben Affleck doesn't really seem all that interested in being Batman right now. But then when you see the grand scheme of things and you get the more bigger picture of all of everything Ben Affleck had to bring to this movie in Zack Snyder's version, I thought, wow, I feel completely different about Ben Affleck's performance and portrayal in this movie than I did in Josh Whedon's original version. So I thought that was super, super interesting. Like I said, Ben Affleck portrays Bruce Wayne as this older, rugged, rustic, mature Batman that at the end of the day is trying to basically operate not so much on reason, but more so on gut instincts, on faith, and just trying to do everything he can to save his home planet. So I thought Ben Affleck did a superb job as the Batman in this movie. Moving next into Gal Gadot as Diana Prince, aka Wonder Woman. I really enjoy Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. I think that she has a sense of power, a sense of confidence, and yet a sense of her honor that I think is really, really important for Wonder Woman. And it makes a ton of sense because it's like with the group of people that she comes from, the Amazonians, they are a group of honor, a group of sisters, a group of sisters who are all willing to fight for each other and always act with honor and truth and justice. And I think that Gal Gadot really portrays that and comes across really nicely throughout the entirety of the movie and every scene that she is in. And she's also very charismatic in and of herself. She has this really good way of getting to people that are maybe hurting, maybe in pain, maybe need just that little extra push. She does that really, really well, and it comes across gentle when it's needed, but also not delusional and realistic. And how do I say this? Blunt. And she helps shine the positive light on any situation. I really appreciate it about Gal Gadot's performance, and maybe that's somewhat of a credit to the writing, but still, you have to have good writing combining with a great performance in order to make it all gel. So, good job on both sides. Moving next into Jason Momoa's Aquaman. Jason Momoa's Aquaman is very. I've never felt such contradictory feelings for a portrayal because Jason Momoa's Aquaman to me is one that doesn't really care about the bigger picture. It seems like he cares, but more so in the microcosm of the world rather than the entire world in general. There is a smaller group of village that he likes to help on a regular basis, and there's also the other half of him, which is the Atlantis, which he doesn't really seem to care nearly as much about. It's a very sort of confusing dynamic, which, like I said, I bet you if I've seen Aquaman, I probably could have gotten a much better feel for it. But without that context, this movie didn't provide enough for me to really have feelings on Jason Momoa's portrayal of Aquaman. I will say that overall, I liked it. I liked it because, like I said earlier, that sense of it's almost like carefreeness was also it made it really positive for me because it's like it reminds you to not take everything so seriously in life, and especially when you've got this very serious situation. It seemed like Jason Momoa kind of brought down the tension a little bit and is sort of saying, I might not have believed in this at first, but I'm here to help in general. So I thought it was very interesting, and I think I want to watch Justice League, Zack Snyder's version, again to get more of an inkling of that and that portrayal, and also see Aquaman, of course, too. It's I want to be clear. It's not to say that I didn't like Jason Momoa in the movie. I thought Jason Momoa was fantastic in this movie. It's just the portrayal of the Aquaman character. I just didn't quite know how to feel about it. It was a little confusing for me, and there's just times where I'm like, why? What made him want to fight with this Justice League? So besides the fate of the world being in their hands, but what was really the closer for him? Because it takes him a while to kind of get on board. So I'm sorry if I confused all of you by saying that, because I'm just as confused right now as I'm sounding. So let's move into Ezra Miller as the Flash. Like I said earlier, Ezra Miller's style in Zack Snyder's Justice League was a lot more vocal in coming across, or clear in its delivery. You could tell that Ezra Miller, he is more of a whimsical person, a whimsical actor, and he brought that to his iteration of Barry Allen's Flash. It was really cool because it's like you could tell that he's really just like the young hero in the story. He is a young kid who is striving and has forces acting upon him that inspire him that are outside of this situation and help fuel his fire. And it shows that he's got great morals, a good head on his shoulders, and that at the end of the day, he just wants to do what everybody else in the Justice League wants to do, which is do the right thing and help make the world a better place in that aspect too. And it added a little bit more fun and a sense of youth that I think the story needed. It was a very good juxtaposition between an older, rustic, wiser Batman and Ben Affleck and a younger, for lack of a better term, more naive, more whimsical Barry Allen Flash, and seeing them fused together on the same team, you got a good mix of really old and really young. And I thought it gelled together quite nicely. And I enjoyed Ezra Miller's performance in this movie. To me, it was a ton of fun seeing him on screen do his thing. My favorite movie of all time is The Perks of Being a Wallflower, and I loved Ezra Miller in that, and I loved him in this movie too. So for whatever it's worth, I just thought I'd throw that little nugget in there as well. And then lastly, I will go into Ray Fisher's performance as Cyborg. So the Justice League movies in general are my very first introduction into Ray Fisher. From what I know about Ray Fisher, he was a Broadway star before this movie. And oh my God, I am a huge, huge, huge fan of Ray Fisher after seeing both Justice League movies. There is something about him that is so charismatic and draws me in, and the way that he delivers his lines and the emotion and you could tell that when he portrays through Cyborg that Cyborg has been through a lot, and his performance I thought just brought out all the best details of before Cyborg went through his hardships and after he went through his hardships. It was absolutely perfect, and I was blown away by it. One really interesting thing I wanted to bring up with Cyborg is that when Ray Fisher, in Joss Whedon's version, there is a line that Ray Fisher delivers that's something along the lines of, if these are gifts, then why am I the one paying for them? It was the best line to me in the entire movie. And honestly, it's the best line to me between Zack Snyder's version and also Joss Whedon's version as well. And he just landed it so perfectly. And that's what really caught my attention with my introduction to Ray Fisher in general. And what's weird is that line is not in Zack Snyder's version, which I thought was really weird because I thought it was seriously Ray Fisher's best line in either version, and I was kind of missing it when it wasn't in Zack Snyder's version. I was like, oh man, I was really looking forward to hearing him see it, and it just never came. But it's just the charisma, the heart behind the lines that Ray Fisher delivered, the anguish and the pain that he feels, and the hope that he also feels throughout the movie as well. It's so much felt, and I was blown away by Ray Fisher, and I can't wait to watch more of his stuff as he makes more stuff. Even his Broadway performances, I'm kind of interested in now as well. And I don't even really like Broadway, so that's saying a lot for me. So for me, out of all of the performances in the movie, I don't think there's one that I really disliked. I at least liked all of them. The ones that really stood out to me the most were Ray Fisher's, and also I'm just gonna go with Ray Fisher. I'll say Ray Fisher's was the best performance for me in this movie, and I can't wait to see more of his stuff in general. So there's a lot to unpack there overall in general. Let me move into overall what I thought about the villain Steppenwolf and the more villainous side of the story rather than just so our heroes. So in the villainous side of this movie, what I really liked about Zack Snyder's version was the fact that it dives, like I said, it dives deeper into everything, and that includes the villain. I thought much more of Steppenwolf as a villain in this movie than I did in Josh Whedon's version. In Zack Snyder's version, Diana Prince, Wonder Woman, goes into a lot more detail about the history of Steppenwolf, about the people he's working for, and it really paints a broader picture of history for these groups of people that I think made Steppenwolf as a villain shine more for me than he did in Josh Whedon's version. In Josh Whedon's version, it's like the same old song and dance with a villain, and it doesn't make for a strong villain. It's world domination, world power. That's all Steppenwolf wants. At least that's the way I took it. But in Zack Snyder's version, you can see that there's a lot more to that. There's a lot more stakes in the game for Steppenwolf. He wants to please a higher power. He's trying to look for redemption. He's willing to do just about anything to get it, and that group has tried in the past. So that adds even more to Steppenwolf's stakes in order to complete his conquest in this movie. And to me, it added a lot more gravity to his character. And plus, the Steppenwolf CGI costume was much better in Zack Snyder's version, and much more intimidating, and a lot more robust than it was in Josh Whedon's version. In Josh Whedon's version, after watching Zack Snyder's version, there's no comparison. In Zack Snyder's version, the CGI costume just made Steppenwolf look like he has conquested worlds before, and he's had some experience in doing so. So I think that in Zack Snyder's version, you get a lot more of the villain side of things. It makes you gain a lot more appreciation for it, and it gives you an overall much more entertaining antagonist and stakes in the game. So there's that too. So I think I've kind of gone over just about everything I've wanted to about this movie. I think that overall, for those of you who are brand new to the Justice League, just like I am, I think you can't go wrong with Zack Snyder's version of the story. In fact, I would say that both Josh Whedon's version and Zack Snyder's version are worth a watch. However, if you want the better of the two versions, I'm going to say Zack Snyder's version was the much better version. I loved it. It was worth the 4-hour time slot. It didn't drag on. The pacing was great. The performances were great. And I actually liked the performances, villains, protagonists, a lot more in Zack Snyder's version because, like I said earlier, this was Zack Snyder's homegrown project that he made from inception all the way to what we're seeing now. So if you only are able to watch one of them, I say watch Zack Snyder's version. You won't be disappointed. There's a lot to love in it, and I highly recommend it. And even if you just buy HBO Max for a 1-month subscription for $15, I'd say it's still totally worth it too. You spend $15 going to the movie theaters anyway, so I highly recommend splurging on the $15 and watching Zack Snyder's version overall. I'm not going to say totally skip Josh Whedon's version, because if you want a little bit more context for comparison for this video, watch both. But yeah, with Zack Snyder's version, it makes me a lot more excited to watch the other movies in the DC cinematic universe, and I can't wait to see what is in store. So, ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for the very first installment of Coffee and Kernels, and I'm super excited and happy that you were able to join me on this, and I hope you liked the video. If you did, feel free to smash the thumbs up or the subscribe button for more. Here's to more Coffee and Kernels episodes to come in the future. I've been Bryce. This has been the Bankrupt Hippo YouTube channel or podcasting platform if you're listening on there. And I can't wait to see you next time. Until then, have a great day.